few years ago when I was 19, I was coming home from watching the fireworks display on New Year's Eve. It was 3 a.m. when I reached my safe, family-friendly, nothing ever happens neighbourhood. I'm from Sydney, Australia, and live in a posher and wealthier area. My friends wanted to call a taxi, because we didn't want to wake our poor parents at this hour to drive us home. Because of my stubbornness and insistence, we ended up taking the very long walk home. My friend Aidan was complaining most of the time. Guess you can't blame him. Rowan was just silent and compliant. I was cheerful. When we reached almost my street, we split ways. The guys continued on their very long walk home, much longer than mine, and I continued on to mine. When I passed a little cake shop, I noticed a guy across the street. I only looked at him briefly, but something in the way he quickly looked up at me, almost in interest, caught my attention. I hurried on anyway, because I'm usually paranoid about things, and 99% of the time it's just me, being paranoid. I turned onto my street, which was much darker than I'd anticipated. This was around 3:15 a.m, mind you, and as I passed the bowling club and the oval, I kept looking behind me just to make sure. It was getting quite cold and dark, so I started feeling creeped out. But there was no one behind me. No one anywhere I could see anyway. I was halfway down my street, where the road dips down, when I noticed something on the path in front of me. I couldn't tell what it was, and at the last minute I stepped off the path onto the road to avoid it, because it looked like it might be a dead animal. And as I stepped onto the road, I turned slightly and saw that there was someone behind me. They weren't too close, but they weren't too far away either. And I remember my heart leapt into my throat, because I hadn't seen them before. And for them to have gotten that close in such a short space of time, well, it didn't sit well with me. When I told people about this later, they said that I should have been quite sus. It's 3 a.m. in the morning, and you're quietly walking behind a girl, not even bothering to keep a safe distance? Like, if you're really innocent, you'd take measures to emphasize that, right? I couldn't see who it was, whether it would be male or female, because it was just a black figure to me. It was a very brief glimpse. I was scared though, so I whipped out my phone and started to call Aidan. I kept calling him, but silly Vodafone wouldn't connect me to him. So I tried calling Rowan, but he wouldn't pick up either. I kept this up at least 5 times, getting increasingly anxious, but not daring to look behind me to see if he was still there. I'm glad I didn't actually. I think I would have really freaked out if I confirmed it. By that time I'd just reached my driveway, and I hurried up it, thinking I would be safe. But, as I was halfway up, I looked over my shoulder again just really quickly, and I saw the figure again. The way I explain this next bit is really confused and muddling, because on the one hand, it may have just looked like he was merely passing my driveway, but on the other, I'm much more certain that it looked like he was about to step onto it. At that precise moment though, it occurred to me that he might be my older brother Jonathan, because no one else would bother walking up my driveway, even if this guy was following me. It never occurred to me that they would really go to all the lengths of going up my driveway as well. I thought it would be completely safe, because I had the advantage of having my house close when he started following me. However, something about the build of the figure didn't really seem like Jonathan to me, so I hurried on in anyway. My beautiful, wonderful, amazing mother had stayed up to wait for me, and I'm so grateful, because she opened the door as soon as I knocked. I hate to imagine what would have happened if I had to have waited for a while. I went inside, but I left the second door open and the outside light on because I thought Jonathan might be coming in any second now. But my mum was like, "You can turn them off, he came back 2 hours ago." I did get a little creeped out by then, but I just dismissed the thought, because we are all so quick to think that we are always so safe. I closed the door, shut off the light, and went to grab a drink of water. My mum went to bed, and I went to my room to grab my clothes, and then went into the bathroom to take a shower, and I switched off the living room lights. This is sort of funny now to think about it. Before I took the shower, I replied back to a message from Aidan, who was asking if I was home safe. I demanded to know why they hadn't picked up the phone, and then told him that I was creeped out for a few minutes, but it was okay. Then I showered. I actually thought about the figure. I wasn't too convinced that it was following me, but my mind did teeter into wondering this or that. In any case, I remember thinking that it was okay because I was safe now. Then, near the end of my shower, I heard something at the window. It didn't sound like the usual creaking or bumping of an old house. The way I described it to other people was like the sound of someone resting their hands against the window to steady themselves. It sounded really unnatural, I know, because it caught my attention straight away, and I immediately jumped to the possibility that there might be someone outside. And I know that only a really strange sound could make me do what I did next, which was turn off the water and crouch under the window, hiding and waiting. I waited for some time, too scared to move for a few minutes, but there was nothing. So I gingerly crawled out, still too scared to stand up properly, and I switched off the bathroom lights. But then, it was impossible for me to dry myself and dress myself. So I turned on the heater light, which is much smaller and dimmer, but as I did that, I noticed at the window there were very small blue lights. That certainly didn't belong there. The only way I can describe it, it was almost like the keypad of a phone was lit up. I was so scared, but I switched off the heater light as well and backed into a corner, my towel wrapped around me, and I waited. It seemed like a long time that I waited. I was too scared to unlock the door and move because I knew it would make a lot of noise. And as I waited in the pitch darkness, several blue lights came on outside the window. It became very bright, and they were moving it, trying to shine it through the window. Now that I think about it, was it a phone? I'm not sure. But that did it. I practically bolted for my mum. I unlocked the door and went into my parents' room, trembling like a leaf, and gibbering that there was someone outside the bathroom window. I was very clearly upset. My mum ushered me around, trying to find a safe room for me to change into. My dad apparently heard the footsteps hurrying back down the driveway, and I'm glad he did, because the situation feels so unreal to me. I'm not even sure if it really happened. Maybe I imagined it, but this is all confirmation that it was not my imagination. I was so shaky. I slid into bed and couldn't sleep the whole night until morning. And even when it was morning, I was terrified, especially when I heard Dad leave the house and go into the backyard. So that's my lesson learned. I'm never walking home at night again. I'm even a bit worried during the day. We never did find out who it was. People wonder if it was the same person I'd passed earlier, but I don't think so. My brother doesn't think so either. He says that it may have been someone lurking at the oval, who came out of a little hole as I walked past the supposed dead animal on the path, because of how suddenly he appeared behind me. Please don't go walking home alone at night, girls. It only takes one moment for you to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it can go very wrong indeed.